Hey friends, I'm Pastor Bill. I serve in a church called Resurrection in the greater Kansas City area. And today I want to talk about where our faith and our work intersect. Now, I know for a lot of us, they just simply don't. For a lot of us, that's not something that we ever really think about or we're not too concerned about. We're not worried about where our faith might impact our work or our work might impact our faith, and they are completely separate entities. And I got to be honest, I understand that. I know I work in a church, and so that might seem counterintuitive, but I've had jobs outside of churches too. And I know that it can be kind of sticky sometimes when we bring our faith to work, or that sometimes we're so stressed out from work that we just want to leave it alone when we go to church and kind of have a moment to reflect and renew and to leave all the rest of that at the door. But I do think that our faith and our work have a lot in common. Actually, when you read the Bible, you find that there's a ton throughout scriptures about work and about how to work. There's really this theology of work where you might argue that a Christian should be the best worker in their office. And when we talk about things like honesty and integrity, those are both Christian principles, but also things that your suppliers and your employees and your bosses and everyone probably wants you to have. We talk about diligence. We talk about working at something with all of your heart as if working for God and not for people. All of these things impact both our faith and our work. So here's kind of where I'm at today. We've been going through this prayer called the Wesley Covenant Prayer that has this phrase: "Let me be employed for thee, or laid aside for thee, exalted for thee, or brought low for thee." And so as I'm thinking through that, as I'm thinking about faith and work, I want to look at the employed for thee part. Now let's hit the rest of it real quick. It's a little easier for some of us to see. Laid aside for thee as a way that we might serve God. I've got a buddy of mine, he just retired. In the terms of modern world, he is laid aside, right? He has all the free time in the world, and he stuffs backpacks for food, full of food for low-income students all across Kansas City, like every single day. Like, this guy worked hard his whole life, his whole career, and now he's working hard to make sure that kids have food, and it's awesome. A lot of us, we can kind of understand, man, if I had more free time, I could do more good in the world. That'd be awesome. Exalted for thee or brought low for thee. I think a lot of us reach a point where we say, I don't really need to be the guy anymore. Maybe you still do. Maybe that's still where you're at. But a lot of us reach a point where we say, like, I'm more concerned with quality of life, or with taking care of my family, or with time to travel, or with something else besides just being the top. And so for many of us, it's not too hard of a shift to say, I'm exalted for God or brought low for God. Yeah, I can understand that. But the employed for thee part, employed for God part is kind of hard. Now, I know a lot of us, there's some quick places we want to go, and I want to just get rid of them real quick. One, I'm not talking about everybody needs to leave their job and go work for the church. I don't believe that everybody should work for the church. I work for the church, and it's awesome. And also, I'll just be honest. There's times that it's hard, and that's a reality. And there's some people that I think get this idea that if I just worked for the church, then it'd be all sunshine and roses, and that's just not a reality. Clergy get burnt out too, just as much as everybody else does. Actually, I think the data is kind of higher. There's this thought that, like, employed for God must it means that I'm always sharing my faith at work. And I think there's something valuable to sharing our faith everywhere we go. I think that's important, but that's not necessarily what I think employed for thee is talking about, or employed for God is talking about. I think what it's talking about is that we are called to live out our faith everywhere, not just in a vocal way that shares it, but to embody it. I think about a friend of mine that I actually ended up having a very long plane ride next to. We rode for about 10 hours straight across the country, and I just ended up sitting next to him. He was an awesome guy, and we started talking. And he's quite a bit older than me, and he had a great career. And during his career, he'd been in charge of deciding, like, what parts of a hotel or of a shopping center were rented out to different companies. That was kind of what he did, and we talked about, that seems pretty secular, right? What did that look like for you? And he said, well, actually, there's a lot of power in who you choose, or who you connect with, or who you interact with. That you can help kind of shape a whole area. And so he started telling me about how one time he got offered a ton of money if they would rent out one part of the shopping center that he was in charge of managing to let's just say a seedy business. It was a massage parlor that wasn't really focused entirely on massages. You get what I'm saying? And he said, there was really a financial incentive to say yes to this, but there was a moral imperative to say no. And that was a place where I got to live out my faith. I think about another friend of mine who goes to the church that I go to, and he's heavily invested in this ministry, this parachurch thing that's on the other side of the city. And I asked him how he knew that part of the city so well, and he said, "Well, I'm over there all the time." And he started telling stories about this parachurch ministry that captured his heart. Now he's in a business that has almost nothing to do with construction, but he's fairly well connected with a lot of folks that do construction on kind of the company sites that he works at. And he noticed that this parachurch ministry, their building was in pretty bad repair. And so he started just kind of like taking out some of the guys that he works with who do construction to lunch and just saying, "Hey, this place is awesome," and kind of sharing their story. And he never forced anybody, he never even asked anybody to do anything, but he watches their eyes would light up with like, wait, I do roofs in that place that blesses so many kids in that neighborhood that needs it so bad. They need a roof. I do roofs. And then he just kind of smile as he watched as this roofing company would go and just take care of roofs. Same thing happened with plumbing. Same thing happened with electricity. This incredible way that he was just using really the connections he had to make a difference in the world around him. Friends, I think a lot of us have the chance to be employed for God in ways that we might never think about. And as we come through this great resignation time, when a lot of us are wanting significance in our life, my hope is that you might find a way, that you might be employed for God. So my challenge for you today is just think, what's a way that I can live out my faith at work in some out of the box way? Maybe it's not deliberately shouting out, "Hey, I go to church and everybody come." Hey, I love my church, but maybe that's not the way. Maybe it's find a way, brainstorm a way, maybe talk to a friend about what is one way that through the work that we do, we can make the world look more beautiful and just and more like the kingdom of God. Have a great week.